Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Villaren, and I'm very excited to be here today because it's been about 10 years to the day almost that I've been working with this kind of platform. And I'm currently working with PayFit, SaaS, HR, and payroll company that you may know. We'll come back to that afterwards because we use Nocode. We built our own Nocode platform. And what I would like to share with you is what I learned throughout the years in terms of Nocode. We go quickly through the past because many presentations were about the history of software engineering and stuff like that. And we will focus on what I think is the future of Nocode and specifically what we do at PayFit in terms of Nocode with our internal platform. So as I was saying, I started 10 years ago. I met during a job fair, I met a guy back in a very small booth called Walter Almeida. He was the founder of Generative Next. You heard about this company, but it doesn't really exist anymore. And he showed me like a really nice platform, which was letting people create applications, web applications without code. But there was no name for this kind of platform at the time. He didn't really know what he was doing. He was a very techy guy and showing me this. And I was amazed by the work. I was looking for a job. So like a couple of months later, I joined the company and I worked there for 6 years. And I learned a lot during these 6 years about startups, about products, and particularly about Nocode because throughout the years, the trend emerged and we learned a lot about things. And the main thing I learned, this is something I titled The Secret when I started writing my slide a couple days ago, but it's not a secret anymore, I think, because we've been hearing this a lot around, is that no-code is code. So well, maybe a slight introduction, no-code is live code. So for me, it's exactly the same to do no-code than to do code. We do it for software development. And somebody that you may know or not, Untitled UML, which is a standard notation for many things in software engineering, called Brady Bush, did say a couple of years ago that the entire history of software engineering is one of rising levels of abstraction. This is an idea that we saw a lot throughout the presentation. So again, I will go quickly through this first part of the presentation, but this is a punch card. I think they were trying to show us this picture yesterday during one of the keynotes and so here is the picture. And this is like one of the computers, post-World War II computer. And of course, after that, on top of punch card, we had assembly language and many what we call third generation languages, so general purpose languages, which were able for any software engineer to do anything. So from very low level languages, where you would have to deal with everything, including memory management, things, up to the languages we use now, which basically abstract all of this, and you can handle memory, you can garbage collect everything. And fast forward a couple of years, a couple of decades actually, in the 90s there were some new languages which emerged, which like HTML for instance, just represents one page. Another language that you might know, which is quite famous because many people don't really like it, CSS. This is a CSS class to represent an egg, for instance. Another language, SQL, SQL, query data, structured data, and get it out for data analysis, for instance. And another one, MATLAB, like for mathematical computations. And all of these languages, they were not general purpose languages like the one we saw before, but they are domain-specific languages. They are specific to one domain, so web development, presentation in web, SQL, you can say like data analysis or data, structured data fetching, MATLAB for mathematics. And all of this, they emerged throughout the years, and they were adding one more level of abstraction on top of all the third generation languages that we talked about. And these languages, they can be either textual, but they also can be graphical. So I talked a bit about UML, which is basically a language to represent many things, including, in that case, classes in software engineering. You might know about the PML, might sound familiar if you've seen Make, because it's the same kind of idea. It's about business process management notation. So it lets lets you basically document and specify business processes. And these languages, they were used to express those specific domains and to help you document them, to help you specify them, and to help you exchange information about them and make sure that everybody understands the same language, which was not necessarily a software engineering language. And maybe let's go back a bit to the 80s. I don't know if you've ever heard about this computer-aided software engineering case tools, but they are basically the ancestors of local platforms. Back in the 80s, we were using this graphical domain-specific language to generate code from UI like this. So it's not really nice in terms of UX, of course, but we were still able to create the start of an application. We would not have a full application development on this kind of tool, but it was very like the ancestor of what we use today as low-code and no-code tools. And they all rely on the same approach of model-driven engineering. Model-driven engineering, this is like the software engineering family, I would say, which basically takes a model and abstraction, and from this model and abstraction will help you create an application or whatever you want. So to build or run a piece of software from this abstraction. A couple of examples of tools which rely, knowingly or not, on model-driven engineering. I know that maybe it's for sure that they apply model engineering by the book, or at least they try to internally when they build the platform. Another platform, Infinable, that you might have heard about, but it's this is another graphical DSL in a local tool as well. And the third one, Simplicity Software. And I specifically use 3 ones which are not on the forum today because I didn't want to make it really games. So that's why you have three screenshots of tools which are not presented here on the forum. But of course, like all the no-code tools right now, they are basically using the same pattern of using models which are simplification of reality, which are created through domain-specific languages to create your applications. So conceptually, low-code and no-code tools, there are this new generation of application development tools. That's nothing new here. And they are composed of several domain-specific languages, which will let you model your application. There are many needs that you can target. Of course, we have websites. We all know about Webflow, Wix, even WordPress maybe. Processes. We heard a lot about Make. There is Mindflow here. I think also on the summit, which deal specifically with processes or automation at least. And of course, application, which is the main focus I want to take today for the discussion, because I think that's where we have many things to do. It's in terms of application building with low-code and no-code. So for our application building, we have 2 approaches. We have the tool approach, where you use many tools and you combine them together. So you can use Airtable, web, whatever. Or you can use a platform, which is basically which unbox everything and lets you create an application within the platform. So those platforms, they are SaaS. They are here to create business application with little or no custom code. Again, this definition, you all know it probably, so I will go through it quite quickly, just to make sure that we have the same definition of what is no-code, in my opinion, versus low-code. For me, no-code is as long as you're using your visual programming editor, and low-code is when you have to fall back on the general purpose language to express some logic or sometimes to build an interface or whatever. And all these platforms, they rely on the same 4 pillars. The first one is the data modeling. That's where you start usually, that you model your data. So for instance, if you have you are building an HR tool, an application, I don't know, it's an idea which just came out of my mind. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but if you are doing that, you will have those kind of entities, those kind of objects that the process for manipulating on the collaborator, for trying to company, the leaves, the absences. And then you will have the second pillar, which is about interfaces, inputs and outputs. So all these platforms that let you define the interfaces, so the forms, of course, like this one, for request and absence, but you can have exports, generation of PDF, XML, CSV, whatever. And you can have inputs with imports as well, or whatever. So all this, you have interface reader or configuration of this kind of thing. And sometimes in terms of input, I also put there the API modelers, because sometimes those tools they let you create APIs on top of your data model just to share part of the data model or to create a specific endpoint for a specific need. And the two last ones are about business logic. So the first one is business rules. Business rules is more like the name states, is about creating rules which lets you express the business logic which happens on your interface on the flies. It can be computation rule for your entity, it can be a visibility rule for your interface, it can be a validation rule for entities. All of these are usually done through business rules, and that's where we start to see that most no-code and low-code tools it's hard to go very deep without code on this stage already. And the last bit is where we usually use something like make or map data entity or whatever. So it's a workflow, and sometimes you have them embedded also on the platform is the workflows. So long-lasting processes with potentially asynchronous stuff. And of course, so all these are domain-specific languages. So you can do that with forms, you can do it with nice UI builders, depends on your platform. And all of these, they are composed together. They are tightly coupled. So the collaborator might have a full name field, which is computed from the first name, the last name. You might have rules, as I was saying, to control the input validity. You will have events when you click on the button, you want to trigger a workflow. And when you finish the workflow, you might want to update some information in the database. So all of these are tightly coupled together, and they make the base of an application, but they are all models. When you create an application with those tools, you create code like this one. So this is an extract from AppSmith, but if you extract from anything else, like when you want to do that, you will have this kind of file, which is basically the code of your application in terms of persistence, like you want to save it, it's going to be the code of your application. And I think that my point here and what I learned from my first 7 years working with companies and implementing application with low code is that we should handle these artifacts, the no-code projects, like code. Because and as developers, as editors, I'm encompassing myself into the editors, we should help the product builders do that as well, because this is where, and we'll see it also on the summit, where we lack tooling sometimes. And doing that, I think it will help us cross what I call the no-code chasm. Well, you all know probably this curve, the innovation lifecycle curve from Rogers, which was defined in the 50s, where we were doing a study of innovation adoption in farms in the US, and now we use it for innovation in any field. And in the 90s, Geoffrey Moore wrote a book called Crossing the Chasm. And the chasm is this part where the market is separated between two markets, early markets, mainstream markets. And I believe if we try to map all the different approaches to low-code, no-code today, we can map them on this innovation lifecycle quite, I think, quite clearly. So for me, blog, CMS, website, e-commerce, everybody knows how to do them without code. Weeks, whatever, Shopify, WordPress, of course, WordPress, and you can take them online and you can run a website in seconds without having to code other person approach, and nobody will tell you it's a crazy idea. Something which also is very common is talking about MVPs. Everybody says no-code for MVPs. So the startups that usually use no-code for MVP because it's easy to start to test the product to the market and get product market fit basis. Where I believe we just crossed the chasm is no-code ops, the internal apps. I've been building internal apps for 7 years with generative objects, and it was always a struggle to convince IT department to use the no-code tool to do that. And seeing all these editors on the forum and talking with them, I feel that there is more and more understanding from the companies and enterprise world that this is something that can help them and SMBs start using this kind of platforms to create internal tools which help their internal users. And what I call crossing the chasm is for complex products, complex applications. Again, I'm biased here. I'm biased because we have a complex application at PayFit to handle payroll, and we build it with Nocode. So I will come back to that right after. But first, I would like to share with you a couple of things I've learned, and probably you've heard for some of them around, but I think it's good repeating because there are good practices which help us, be better when we do Nocode as product builders. So this is, the statement that I've heard a lot, and maybe many of you have heard this as well. Nocode is only for MVPs because it's not scalable, it creates technical debt, and effective business logic is limited in Nocode. And there is this second quote that I love, and my colleague some of them will love because I use it a lot at work. All models are wrong and some are useful because Nocode is really about modeling and about simplifying things. And of course, all the critics, the limitations I mentioned are all true because most no-code tools, they are created for a purpose, not for all purpose. So if you talk about scalability, which is the capability to support the growth of an application, I don't know if you've heard about the yesterday, they were talking about their scalability issue with Airtable, which makes sense because they use Airtable to, get with a fast-growing company and having lots of requests. So of course, at one point, if you use one tool, you will get a limit because the tool is not made for this kind of growth. But it's the same with technology in general. If you're as a developer, and I can tell you, I've seen it everywhere, including at PayFit. If you pick the wrong technology at the beginning, then in the future you might reach some scalability issue. And you need to change technology. So how to overcome this? Well, first is pick the right tool. Easy to say. Hard to do. It's really hard to anticipate. That's why I prefer usually platforms. I know you have vendor lock-ins, so you discuss with the platform to understand what they do. But usually, I think there are more. You can go further with the platform than just with the And the second one is adapt your practices. We talked a lot about practices, modularity, stuff like that, and I think it applies. And of course, as a vendor, I think that's something we should support as well to not be an obstacle to this scalability issue. It's probably not in the best interest of most vendors to let you leave the project to go to another project, but I think the market will benefit from this, having this ability to switch from one product to another, or having a platform where you can switch from one technology to another depending on how your product evolves, and of course with pricing which evolves accordingly. But that's something, again, I've seen in some of the platforms I've talked with, and we were doing with generative objects as well. Being able to switch database technology, for instance, is something which exists on the market of local platform. Technical depth is a bit about the same thing, but maybe a bit wider. As a developer, we all know that technical debt exists from day one because you take design decisions and you don't know how they're going to impact you in your future. So you always need to think about this. As a no-coder, product builder, I heard a lot about documenting no-code tools, and somebody yesterday was telling me that their first question in an interview was asking about the documentation. Was maybe somebody was saying that the first question they ask a product builder is, do you document your application? I think it was in the talk yesterday afternoon. And I think, of course you need to document because right now is everything which exists. It's hard to keep track of your application evolution, and hopefully the editors will catch up and provide you such features. Some of them already do. Versioning, again, we heard a lot about this. I know LCNC is providing this on top of the tooling with platforming the different tools, but some editors they already implement this as well, and I think it's very important to be able to keep track of your version, maybe roll back when you need to. So these are like best practices in terms of code. Like any software engineer who develops will tell you that they do that. Word document. Let's not talk about it. And the third one is modularize. Again, best practice in software engineering. Not so easy to do in terms of Nocode platforms or Nocode tools and Nocode platforms because some of the time they don't provide the right tool. But if you can try to modularize, at least from a business perspective, so I don't know if you know about domain-driven design, but you have this, you can define your scopes, your domain, and at least try to separate your domain so that you can act on one without impacting everything and make sure that you communicate with the right interfaces, APIs in between. And of course, from a reusability perspective, this is something which is quite interesting. So if you can give UI components that will be reused throughout the application, this is a nice plus I think from a platform bundle. And the last one, which should be the first one, in my opinion, is test. In terms of Nocode, the Nocode tool, I haven't seen a lot of testing capabilities. So the least you could do is write playbooks of your critical path and replay it every time you deploy. You can automate that with external tools, of course. And hopefully vendors will catch up and provide you the right tooling to do that. And the last limitation I was mentioning is limited business logic, and for this, I'm sorry to tell you, there is no secret for now. Most platforms, they will tell you why you need to switch to code and you need to write code. Unless, and that's my transition to where we are now. So I was telling you, that's what I learned basically in terms of practices after 6.5 years working with generative objects. We lots of applications, and most of the time we're doing custom code because we have business logic. And then, I changed company. I joined PayFit in 2020, and PayFit has an internal local platform, and it uses it for the creation of the PayFit application. I don't know how many of you know PayFit, except the PayFit. Users, maybe, I don't know if you are users, yeah? So PayFit quickly is a SaaS company where we try to simplify payroll for small and medium businesses. So basically, you can run your payroll on an interface. You can do your HR management, so absence, expenses, once everything on the application, and you can also handle what we call the French. Yeah, what we call the financial well-being of your employees with advance on payment of salary and stuff like that. We are creating in 2015. From day one, we had JetFund, our internal local platform, and now thanks to JetFund, we are in 4 countries, and we generate 150 payslip per month. And 87% of the PayFit pages are built with JetFund. So it means that if you are an administrator using PayFit, there is 9 chances out of 10 that you are using something which has not been developed by a software engineer, but by a product builder at PayFit. So this is to tell you the power of JetFund. JetFund is capable of handling 90% almost of PayFit, and maybe all those pages are about payroll. What we have as custom code is mostly the rest, where you need to have nice interfaces and less form-based one. So maybe to give you a quick glimpse at what we do in terms of JetFund, I need to introduce you to the business use case before because it's a bit complex. And if you have questions, we have many product builders, some product builders. I will just put the questions to them, but so that's a classical payroll process. You need to onboard your company and the employees, and then every month you do the preparation of the payroll where you update the data about the contracts, time tracking, any events which impacts payroll. You verify as an employer, verify the data before running payroll, and then we run payroll, so we generate the payslips and we send the declarations for you to the administration, like your staff, for instance. And we were talking about these pillars, of low code. and that's how we do data modeling at PayFit. So it's not like it's a graphical DSL, it's a form-based one. So the product builder will be able to create what we call the variables here, and we have user variables which are basically inputs, and we have computed variables which rely on the JetFont expression language as well. And there are many parameters to be able to create them, for instance, or to do many things about them. So here I move to what variable we have. This is the forename, nice British English. The interfaces, second pillar, quite classical as well. Our interface builder is a component tree mimicking the DOM of the page with a bit of more abstraction, so that for builder they can focus on building the interface. And of course, when we're talking about interfaces, we also have file generation, as I was saying. So this is again part of the application of the tool for builder we call the processor, where they can generate XML files, which are the files that are sent to the declaration to the administration. These are configured by product builders. So you have specific rules within the components here, where basically they decide if we want to output or not something depending on the company collective agreement, for instance, or any contextual information we have in this context. And of course, the payslip. I don't know if you've seen our payslip. We have a nice first view, and of course, after that, it's more tabular-like payslip because it's not that very simple, at least. But we have a payslip generator where the product builder they can decide what goes where on the payslip, so they are quite autonomous on this as well. So these are quite classical in terms of code, nothing new. What we are doing a bit more than most platform, at least to the best of my knowledge, is the business logic expressions. So one could say, okay, this looks like code. Yeah, it looks like code, of course, because we are handling payroll computations. So we need conditional trees, we need additions, we need every mathematical operations, of course. We have some keywords which are very specific to our language. So we have a domain-specific language here for payroll and expressing computation. So you could see it as it's basically Excel formula language. But that's the only thing that the product builder they need to do. They don't need to set up a full development environment like we have to do in Nocode. They just have to focus on creating a language. We were talking with Alexis earlier about the cooking metaphor, and basically in terms of cooking, they would have just to do the recipe and to cook. Where if you are a developer, you need first to go grocery shopping and then you need to get your stuff. So this is really, for me, this is not low code, it's still programming because you need to express logic and sometimes very hard logic because payroll is not easy. But still, it's not code. Well, yeah, because no code is code, but it's not it's not a general purpose language where you need to develop classically. And I think this is like, for me, the next step of building complex applications with no-code, low-code is to have this kind of tooling available for product builders. So I talked a lot about product builders, and I want to do a quick, if some of you were in the Pierre's presentation, you probably have seen this slide before as well, but product builders, they are the cornerstone of PayFit. They are in France already 45, I think. 45 product builders in France, and between 10 and 15 in all the other countries where we are in. So it's a big team of product builders working on JetFont or internal tool to create the application. And they can do everything from product management, design, and of course development through JetFont of our application. And some of them will specialize throughout the years in specific jobs like development or design. And our goal is to give product builders autonomy so that they can do everything I talked about in terms of making sure that it's scalable and it's maintainable. We have, I can see some of them smiling, so we have some improvements still to do with JetFont even. But I think we are ahead of some platforms. We're talking about testing, for instance. In JetFont, product builders, they are able to define their own functional and non-regression tests meaning that every time they want to deploy, they will run this test automatically, and it will verify that the computation that they updated or created is in accordance with what they expect. So it prevents some regressions. Of course, we have versioning. It's quite simple right now. It's a GitHub-like versioning. And release management, meaning that we, unlike some very known tools, we heard a lot about Make and the fact that you could change things in production, which horrifies me. We do release management, so you can back up stuff, back up your code, release it to the production as a product builder, and you can roll back on the previous version of that one if needed. And of course, we adapted our internal platform to PayFit context for scalability purpose, of course, but for domain purpose, because it makes sense to have in the JSON expression language, for instance, some specific keywords. I don't know if you've ever heard about the pay period, which is basically the concept of having one time over 1 month, but it can be something more than a month, where you pay somebody. This is very payroll specific, so we have this concept at the heart of JSON. And thanks to JSON, to give you some numbers, for instance, I was there, but I didn't do it. The product builder, they were able to release the first iteration of the unemployment. What was the feature? Yeah, partial unemployment. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I don't know everything. The partial unemployment feature after the first COVID, lockdown, when the French government released the new laws about this, like in 10 days, we were able to have the feature implemented at the first iteration. It was not complete. There was still some errors because the law, also was not complete. But we were able to do that in 10 days, which is quite fast in my opinion. And I'm not sure our competitors were able to do that in 10 days. So yeah, Nocode is live code, but with different users, and I think we are all aware of this. And for me, there are two things that we can do to improve their lives as software vendors of this kind of platform. First is testing. For me, it's a big core here. Most platforms, you cannot do proper testing with them, so it's a pain to do proper software development with the platform. You cannot test. And the second one is to prevent all this technical debt and scalability issue, is to help them, constrain them in their environments, but with the right constraint and the right UX to guide them through the ideal path to build the right applications. And of course, if you want to compete with JSON, you can have a nice business logic builder. But we are not saying JSON.
Yes.
Yes. And just to finish, a quick glimpse at what I think is the future from what I've learned throughout the years. And some actually it's funny because I heard some of the things I've seen I'm going to say during the forums or the summit. So what I believe will be the future of low-code, no-code. In terms of product builder tooling and autonomy, I'm not going to cover every topic. I'm not talking about enterprise versus tools or stuff like that. But I believe the first thing is quite clear that there will be a convergence of tooling. We see lots of practices, and we start to see companies like LCNC, for instance, which come on top of others. So I think there is this movement of trying to have better tooling for all product builders. The second one, I have to, it's a buzzword, so I have to put it on my slide, is AI. As a developer, I was quite impressed by GitHub Copilot, for instance, where you can have an assistant to code, at least to do the easy stuff. And I think we could have this in Nocode. Actually, I don't know if you know that Mendix has a feature called Mendix Assist, where you can, when you build what they call a microflow in Mendix, basically they suggest to you what is the next step of the flow, depending on what they learn from all the applications built from the start of Mendix. So I believe as the vendors will grow and have more and more data with all the applications that they build, they will be able to train AI models on them and probably do the same kind of things. And the last one here is domain-specific platform. That's what we do at PayFit. We have a platform dedicated to payroll and HR, where we have as first-class concepts of the different pillars. We have data, which are we have models which are not changeable, like the entities, the base entities, the keywords I was talking about. And I believe that we will see more and more like vertical platforms emerge on different topics. Yesterday morning, Emmanuel Charter from Bubble was talking about like all this delivery company reinventing the same delivery system, and maybe we see a no-code platform for this, because yeah, it's a shame to reinvent the wheel every time. And you know, as I was introducing, I was saying, like Roger Bush was saying, the history of software engineering is in the level of right of abstraction. Maybe the next step is what I call a meta platform, which could let you create vertical platforms. I know it's a crazy idea, but it's something which actually exists. Because my former company, Nocode, they are working on this, on the meta platform, which basically lets you create specific platforms for creating forms, for generating data management, or stuff like that. I don't know if it's going to take or not, but maybe in the future we will see some trends like that. Well, this is a long shot, because we are so young, I think, in the no-code, low-code approach still, that we will not see. And my utopia, I don't know, the unlikely killer feature that I would love to see is an open standard and a common language for all platforms. This will probably not happen because, you know, vendors are vendors. But, you know, imagine we have like a general purpose language. We could describe any application with the same language, and then you can just pick your platform to run your application. So you would not have the scalability issue anymore. You could just, you know, say, I want to start with a small platform that takes a small thing and move to another one. And you could even have like new tools, like tools dedicated to creating your application but not running it, and tools dedicating to the runtime and be able to run the thing. This meta language actually is, you know, it exists in the model-driven engineering world. There are people working on meta modeling and stuff like that. So it exists, but it's more like scientific research right now. But I believe that it would be nice to have it embedded in those platforms. But it's probably a bit unrealistic, for now at least, as the vendors are, you know, trying to keep themselves, cut themselves a slice of the pie. Well, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and if you have any questions for me or for the product team. Any questions?
Maybe one on just now. Sorry, I just prepared the.
Oh, right. Yeah, go ahead.
It means that you developed the platform at the very beginning of PayFit.
Yeah.
How long did it take?
We started in 2015.
Yeah, okay, so 5 years.
So we're still working on it. It evolves. Some with I'm looking at it. We were making it evolve every day, every month, every year. But from day one, it was the co-founders. There were like one CTO and 2 non-tech people, and basically the story is that the CTO didn't want to deal with payroll logic at all, and the CEO and the CPO didn't want to code. So basically provided a language to do this. So it started as an expression language I showed you. I don't know if you saw it, but and then it moved to like having interface builder on top of this. And it was not called low-code, of course, because it was 7 years ago. I don't even think the term existed, because it started in 2016 or 2017. But still, so it was still in the same, you know, trend of abstracting and writing a letter of function, making sure that the business people could focus on the business logic, and the tech people like us provide this kind of thing. And I something I didn't say, but I think for me, JetLong is not a no-code platform; it's a low-code platform, because we do some things with code at PayFit, particularly even for payroll. So like I was talking about the run payroll process, for instance, but some of this stuff are done with code because we need to be able to monitor it to make sure that it comes well for our clients. Right now, now we can provide. It doesn't really make sense to provide this for the user because it's not their ownership.
It kind of reminds me of how Amazon began. I mean, they made a bunch of internet stuff, and then they released it to the public and it made AWS. So
Maybe we will raise it.
do you think PayFit will release data someday to the public, or is it too specific to a domain?
I think it could be. I don't know. Honestly, I don't have any insider information about this. But from what Jetland is and how it could evolve and how we are trying to make it evolve, it could be like in a couple of years. It could be a platform sort of open source. At least in my mind, it's not something I think couldn't happen. But I'm not saying strategy of it right now. Thank you. Thank you very much.